Hello and welcome to another Caseware webinar. Today we'll be covering all the new changes courtesy of Working Papers 2021. This webinar will be presented by Yanni, our Working Papers and iXBRL product manager, Tom, an Education and Media Technician, and myself, James, another Education and Media Technician. As always, if you have any questions throughout the webinar, please use the Q&A feature. We will be running a Q&A session at the end of the webinar to cover any of the questions asked, and Tom will be keeping track of these questions throughout the webinar. In addition to that, you can also use the chat function if you're having any more technical focused issues in regards to the webinar, and if you have any issues on that side of things, Tom will also be handling that as well. I'll now hand over to Yanni, who's going to run through the agenda for today.
Thanks, James. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Working Papers 21 release. So I'll take you through some of the changes that they've done, some of the new features and the fixes. But let's have a quick look at the agenda. So upgrading to Working Papers 21, we'll talk about that. We'll cover new features, and then at the end, James will just take you through some of additions to Working Papers of what you can do, like SmartSync, Toolkit, and Connector. So like James said, if you have any questions or you just would like a shout out in general at the end, just get in touch with the features. Right. So let's have a look at what we've done with Working Papers 21. Before we do that, let's have a poll. So I would like to know, please, when do you upgrade to the new Working Papers? All right, let's give it a few more seconds. Okay, so as you can see there, when it is released, 29%, and then beginning of the year, 37%. Okay, just before support stops for all the version, that makes sense. So, okay, and then never a good time to perform an upgrade. And I'm glad some people did mention that, because it's quite tricky to actually, when do we release Working Papers 21? Because we've got corporates, we've got practices, and everyone is busy throughout the year. Okay, thanks very much for that, Tom. So let's go on to the next poll. And when is the best time for you or your firm to upgrade to the new Working Papers? And we'll just go a little bit quicker on this one. Okay, so it does looks like what we thought, that it is beginning of the year. Okay. Excellent. I wonder how many of our clients, which is on today on this webinar, is actually IFRS clients. So I will get in contact if you guys can get in contact with me. But yeah, so if we can, sharing the results here, it looks like the majority is the beginning of the year. Okay, excellent. Thank you for the feedback. We do have another polls coming up, and that will might be of interest for some of you guys. Okay. Right. Okay, so installing the new software. So we have released Working Papers 21, and the version number for that is 21.00.152. It is quite important, well, not so much important, but when you do speak to our support staff, they might ask you the exact release version of this, because we do have international clients that might be on another version. But our UK version that we release supporting is 21.00.152. And then we also released the template bundle TO138, and that goes to Working Papers 21. We have released, well, not released, but if you are not up to date with Working Papers, but you want to take them now in the e-packs, I'll talk about that next. Then you need to be up to date with e-packs. So we do have a template bundle for Working Papers 20 available, but that's not being distributed. Right. Okay. So let's have a look at just a timeline of what we've done before we released working papers. So at the end of November, we released working papers 21 with the template bundle. In the beginning of September, we released the corporate EPAC for 503, then the charity and academies EPAC in beginning of October, and then we squeezed in that tax EPAC just beginning of November. Since working papers, we've released in December the first corporate EPAC for 601, followed by the tax EPAC 1301. And then looking ahead of this, we will be releasing, well, we're scheduled to release a corporate and tax EPAC late February, and then in March, the next charity and academy EPAC. Okay, so it is quite important to know which EPAC you are on. Before you can install the new EPAC for 601, you have to be up to date with last year's EPAC. I know our EPACs are cumulative, but when we release the working papers, then the EPAC starts again, so reset, and that's the difference in numbers as well. So if you are not up to date with 40305 and you install 40601, then you're going to miss whatever was released in 40503. The same goes for the tax EPAC, so all our EPACs. So that's why we released the template bundle as well. So if you're not sure if you're up to date, you call our support and they will have a look for you. Or if you know you are not up to date and you don't know which EPAC you last installed, just reinstall TO138, and then that will bring you up to date to the latest. Okay, actual installing working papers 21. It is a straightforward process. I'm not going to talk too much about that. I just want to point out the release documentation. So everything is on a KB article. Some of you might recognize this from last year as well. So make a note of this article 4209. So all your working papers installation documentations are there. And this is like a rolling article. So whenever we update our release documentations, we will just update it straight there. And you will find all the latest stuff. And that's not all. We also have all our getting started guides. So this is a little bit more than last year. So our EMT team, whenever they upgrade or update or create a new getting started guide, this article will always be live. So we will just add it, amend it, or if something's not relevant anymore, take it away. But I just want to quickly focus on the working papers interactive guide. So it takes you through things. There's an intro. I know I'm just focused on working papers here, but all our getting started guides are interactive like this. So it's some initial questions they ask you in the beginning. It talks about your licensing options, how to register. So if you do know about working papers, but you forgot about certain aspects, you can just go through that and it will show you again. Setting up caseware, it will show you the installation of the application with sometimes there's pictures, sometimes there's actual little movie clip for you. So it is quite easy. Talk about the caseware data store if your firm are making use of that. So quick general overview of working papers. So if your firm or corporate do have new starters, it is worth just letting them through. They can skip the parts of the installing, but this explanation of working papers is quite useful. And then we have a quiz at the end, just to test your knowledge on what you've done. Okay, before I continue, and it's just another poll, please. Are you making use of the speed enhancement that was released with beta, as a beta, with working papers 20? Very interesting. I can see the results so far. So, no, yeah. Right. So I wasn't aware of it. 87% of you guys. Excellent. Okay, we can stop sharing that. We did release, CWI did release a little speed enhancement with case view. Now, what it is doing, it reduces the calculation times of your case view cells. So for those clients that said yes, it will be nice to know if you can just drop a comment for Tom to say whether you actually experience this speed with it. But what it is just a additional to your CV Verve file. When you do install Working Papers 21, it is going to overwrite your CV.verve file. So you're going to have to add that little enhancement again to that. And if you do want to make use of it, check out article 4297. So that will explain exactly what it is doing, step-by-step guide of how you need to add it on. And then, yeah, let us know if you do experience any speed for that. Okay, new features for Working Papers 21. I have to say before we start on this, there is not a lot of new things coming into Working Papers. For Working Papers 20 and 21, I got the feeling that they are focusing more on integration, cloud integration. So they are prepping Working Papers to become more like a hybrid and going forward for the step towards the cloud. So let's have a quick look at what they've done. And this is just a few highlights. Well, highlights of things within your Working Papers guide. All the, the latest of all the new features and fixes are in there, so check it out. But for cloud integration, there's now a warning message that will appear when you perform a year-end close on a file that has already been published to the cloud. And then cloud contacts can now be selected directly from the engagement properties in Working Papers. IDEA integration. Now, IDEA might be, you might not have no idea what I'm talking about here, but IDEA is a feature of Working, well, it's now an add-on with Working Papers. IDEA is on its own as well. For some of the clients that are using it, it's going to be more incorporating now with Working Papers. So I do expect a lot of new things to happen with that, with Working Papers 22. But currently, you can now import database files with the IDEA icon from your document manager or onto the document manager. And all imported external documents use the icons relative to their file type within your document manager now. So this might be old news for just Working Papers users, but for our IDEA users. So if you import a PDF or Excel or a Word document, that actual icon will appear now. On the actual interface, so they've added columns to the SmartSync server and cloud file list to display each engagement's client number, type, and description. And then hovering the cursor over a user's initials in your document manager will now display a tooltip with their full name. For Tracker, the clear synchronization info option can now be performed on a SmartSync server files, and also file compression now includes all files and subfolders within the directory. Yeah, that was short and sweet, but that was the new features. Okay, so let's have a look at the fixes that they've applied. Now, this is also just a very small sample of the fixes. The full list of fixtures are available on the What's New guide within your documentation. Okay, for case view, they fix an issue where merge pages function would cause a delay when opening up print preview. They've also fixed an issue that caused merged pages in sub-documents to unmerge when you reopen up the document. Cloud integration, they fixed an issue where the two-factor authentication prompt would display continuously prior to the 30-day expiration date. They fixed an issue that caused the integrated files lockdown date to display incorrectly in the cloud. And they fixed an issue where performing a year-end close on a published and locked file down would not automatically publish in next year's file. On the actual interface, they fix an issue where the zoom level of a browser window would reset if you switch to another window. They also fixed an issue where opening up a consolidation would no longer display the prompt to create synchronized copies of external files. Under imports, they fixed an issue that prevented users from selecting the accounts division and accounts subdivision columns headers during an Excel import in the wizard. Okay, so support for Working Papers 2020. We will withdraw our support for Working Papers 2020 the 31st of May 2022. So it's the same as last year, what we did for Working Papers 19. So we do, so we had a few questions about, oh, will Working Papers stop working if we're still on the older version? No. So if you don't update or upgrade before the 31st of May to Working Papers 21, your Working Papers 20 will still work and you can continue working with it. But the whole thing of us withdrawing our support is because our development team will now officially move over to Working Papers 21, and all EPACs after the 31st of May will only be working in Working Papers 21. So you run the risk of your accounts not being compliant, or if you call support with there's something wrong with your file because there's a bug, and that bug is fixed in, well, after 31st of May in the EPAC, they won't be able to fix it for you. So we urge all clients to upgrade as soon as possible. So we do have, when we took the poll, we did see that the majority is when it's being released or in Q1. So that's good. And thank you very much for that. Right. So sweet and short for Working Papers update, a little bit more at the end, but I'm going to hand over back to James now, and he will just take you through SmartSync to show you, what is available.
Fantastic. Thank you, Yanni. I'm just going to go ahead and take control, share my screen, and make sure we've got everything set up correctly there. Perfect. There we go. So you should be able to see my screen now. Wonderful. So here we can see, like Yanni said, we're going to go through SmartSync first today. Then we're going to cover the connector and the toolkit as well. So it's just a refresher on a couple of the areas that some people might have forgotten about in working papers. So we're going to start off with SmartSync. We're going to start off with the integration on SmartSync. So this is connecting you to the cloud, your cloud server for your company. What we'll do is we'll start off within a fresh copy of Caseware Working Papers. We haven't opened up any files at this point. We're going to then head to the options section here, and under the tab on the left, Caseware Cloud, we're going to then select the integrate tick box for integrating with Caseware Cloud. You'll notice that this area below is now highlighted. If it's your first time integrating, you won't have any servers written down here. However, if you have previously integrated, the server will remain there by default. Your server URL will be something along the lines of uk.casewarecloud.com and then / a variation of your company name. For today's example, we're going to be using the training server, so I'm going to select this training server that's been pre-entered and then select OK. This will then give me the pop-up to log into Caseware Cloud. So perfect. Oh, there we go. And then pop in my password, which does change from occasion. Perfect. So now we're integrated with the Caseware Cloud, the training server. So if I select options again, go to Caseware Cloud, it can now show me that I'm logged into Caseware Cloud. Fantastic. Okay, so from here, what we're going to go through is uploading / publishing a file to the cloud. So this is my offline file. If I double click that to open it, just wait for that to open. Fantastic. Okay, and a big giveaway to know if a file is already published or online or offline, in fact, is down in the bottom right here. There's a status, sync status area. We can see that this one's offline, of course. So what we're going to do is go and publish it. So to start off with, we'll go up to the Cloud tab and then click Publish. Now this is where you have to do a little bit of work beforehand on the cloud itself. So I'm just going to drag across my training server cloud window onto this screen. You should be able to see that now. So this is the entity in which I want to attach my engagement to. So if you notice the engagements down here, they're currently blank. There isn't a file uploaded. So what we're going to do is publish to this entity itself. So you'll notice that Caseware's used a bit of automation here, and it already knows that based on the file name that it probably should go to this entity. If it doesn't show you that, then you can search against here as well, and it will display the entity that you're trying to connect to. So after selecting it, select OK. And we'll keep an eye on the bottom right here. This will then say publishing and then online after a little bit of time once it's published. Something important to go through is the status the words that we call that we refer to for the files. Sorry, we refer to files as parent and child copies. You always have one singular parent copy, and that will be this file once it's been uploaded to the cloud. Once it's up on the cloud, then whenever you access it, you're actually technically taking a child copy. And if you keep an eye on the bottom right there, you'll see that it's currently publishing. We'll go through and I'll show you exactly what that looks like in a second under properties for the synchronized status. So if you ever hear that on a support call, parent or child copy, that's what that refers to. You never actually should be accessing the parent directly. It's at where you get your copy from. Wonderful. So this is now online. If we then click properties here, we can now see that we've got a parent copy on the server itself, that URL that we used earlier, and indented below we can see my now child copy, which is this file, which was just a local copy a second ago. So you'll notice that this also has my local machine's file path. So we can track down where these copies are held, either by the username or by tracking down the person's path there, if you don't know where it is. Fantastic. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take it off the cloud. So doing the complete opposite and reverting this file back to a local copy. So one of the first things that you want to do, I'm just going to close out the file just so we don't cause any issues. Wonderful. Wait for that to close. Brilliant. Okay, and I'm just going to bring across our browser here. So on the browser, if I refresh that, we will now see that we've got our engagement shown up here. So to remove it from the cloud, first of all, we want to abandon all of the child copies. So it won't remove the one on the cloud just yet. We just want to abandon the other copies, the children that have been created. So we'll select the engagement, and then in the top right corner, click these settings, 3 dots, and click to abandon sync copies. So this will show you all of the sync copies. Obviously for today, we only have one. To select all of them, just select the top version here and then click OK. This will ask you if you're sure you want to do this because it will be deleting any of the other copies. So perfect. If I refresh this, we'll still see that the engagement is still on the cloud. The parent is still there. We've just got rid of the child copies. Fantastic. And just to show you here, this is saying not fully synchronized. If I then access this file, we get this pop up in the bottom right, sorry, which is just to inform us that our SmartSync copy is no longer connected to the cloud, and it says offline there. So if you ever see that message, you may want to talk to one of your colleagues. Maybe they've abandoned your copy by accident, something to investigate on that front. I wouldn't do any work on this file as such because it won't be synchronized. Perfect. So what we then want to do is remove that message. We want to stop this file thinking that it's still a synchronized file. So we'll just close it down again. Fantastic. And what you would do is right click this, your file, sorry, and copy the path to the clipboard. I've done this earlier, so I've just got the file explorer here. This is our file with the accounts within there, as you can see. You'll notice at the top I've got this -sync file. If you can't see this file, make sure you go to the View tab, sorry, and select Hidden Items, and that will show this hidden sync file. What you want to do with this is just delete it. Now it's important that you understand that you've done all the previous work before this point, and you're not just going to be removing the sync file because that can cause issues just doing it on its own. So hit delete, remove that synchronized file, and now what we'll find on this screen is when we open up our file, it will be reverted to a local state again. So keep an eye on that bottom right again for the status. We don't have the pop-up and it's back to normal, it's fully blank. There's one last thing that we want to do just to clean this up, and that's by jumping onto our training server. we can still see that we've got the engagement as a parent. We've deleted all these child copies. We want to delete the parent. Pretty simple. Oh, sorry. There we go. Click into the engagement. Click the three dots, and because we've abandoned, we can now delete this engagement off the cloud. So that's reverted it back to its original state. We don't have anything on the cloud, and we have one file that's local. Perfect. So now we've covered that, we're going to be going on to the connector next. Perfect. So if we jump into Document Manager, just going to scroll down to the bottom here. Oh, wait for it to get down. There we go. Okay, so I've got one that I've made earlier, like Blue Peter. This is a connector folder, and I've got a Q2 fixed asset lead schedule. So obviously you can use our Caseware lead schedules, or if you want to, you can create them using Excel. Just bear with me 2 seconds. Just need to close down the other workbook from earlier and reopen that. Here we go. Sorry about this. And reselect to open that. So what we use connector for is it allows us to reference information within Caseware to a Excel document. And whenever the information within Caseware is updated, it will also update and replicate that new change in information to the Excel document. So you don't have to keep an eye on the Excel document as well, and so you don't get a mismatch in information. So as you can see here, we've got a tangible fixed asset lead schedule made up in Excel. As you can see, if I select one of these figures, at the top we've got this formula set up. So what's happened here is this cell is referenced to the map number within Caseware, and if I were to make an adjustment, it would then refresh on screen here as well. So I'm just going to go through and show you the connector. Oh, sorry, there we go. The connector feature. So by clicking add-ins on the top tab here within Excel, and then going to Caseware linkage, this pop-up will allow us to reference the information within our file. So as you can see at the top, I've got my file name, and I've got all of these codes here, and on the left I can select between the different areas in which I want to view. So I'm just going to select mapping for today. There we go. And you'll notice that we've got what basically looks very similar to the assign mapping screen. That's how you can think about it in this example. So I'm just going to open this up a little bit more. We'll find a figure that has an amount assigned to it. Perfect. So I'll use this A01 code. So you'll notice as soon as I've selected this A01 map number, it's populated at the bottom here within the formula box. And wherever I've selected on screen will be my target cell. So now I've selected my target cell, the property, sorry, that I want to place there. And it's appeared at the bottom with a result of how it will appear on screen. I can then click this accept blue tick and it will appear on screen. What you can do is then, without closing down this window, select the next cell along and then select the description. Again, it will pop up at the bottom and then select the OK tick. So if we then want to pull in a figure, we can scroll along, select the figure itself. And the interesting thing about this formula at the bottom is it's similar to the custom calculation feature on the face of the accounts. I don't know if you've used that before, but you can combine figures and make your own calculations. So what we can do is click the minus symbol and grab another figure. And you'll notice that the result will populate live on screen for you before you add it to the Excel document. So we can then click OK, and we've got that figure there. So that covers the linkage. You can also play around with the different categories here. We've got lead schedules and all the groups as well. So you can create your own lead schedules like that. That's the basic fundamentals of Connector. We're now just going to go through the other features that you can see under add-ins. This is a document reference button just to the right of the linkage. This allows us literally to create a reference to the document, as simple as that. You just select the document, for example, the PDF of the accounts. This is my kind of draft today. And I'll click OK there. And when I click that, it will open up the PDF of the accounts within Caseware. Next on our menu here is the tick mark. What I prefer to use is the drop-down list because it shows you all the drop-downs. It's a bit faster. These are all the options that you have available, and you can add the tick marks directly to your Excel document. And then finally, we've got tools here, which are basically the same tools as you find on working papers. Recalculate the unlink. We won't go through them today, but they're pretty self-explanatory. And then the help button, that will just, if selected, that will open your browser and take you to some guidance for Connector itself if you're having any issues. So I'm just going to close this down, save it, and close it. So that covers how Working Papers pushes the figures through to Connector. But now what we're going to do today is pull figures from that same Connector document onto the face of the accounts. I'm just going to open up the accounts. Let me just take a second. So while we wait for that to open up, for today's example, we're going to be accessing the enable editing feature. So just to bear in mind, if you're unable to access that area, please speak to someone like a manager, perhaps. They'll have the password needed to access this area. We can't provide that over this webinar, unfortunately. But it will allow us to add in a custom cell. So that's something else that's quite useful to use for the future. So yeah, so we'll jump into editing. We'll click to insert our custom cell, and I'll show you the exact naming scheme for the cells as well, because it's important that we use a name that's not referenced anywhere else within Caseware. Otherwise, we might be pulling through information that we don't want. Because in Caseware, if you use the same cell name, the information will be duplicated, which is great if you don't want to keep entering in the same data. Similarly to Connector, you want it to update automatically. You could use the same name 4 times throughout the Caseware, change one of the cells, and it would update the same information within that cell to all the other 3 cells with the same name. So it's kind of like having a twin of a cell. It's just taking a little while to open because we're on a webinar. Perfect. Okay, so I'm just going to jump through to my reports here, accounting policies, and we'll go for tangible fixed assets. So moving that off the screen. So what we're going to do is make sure that within your tangible fixed asset, you've turned on a user text area, because that's where we're going to be entering the cell into. You won't be able to enter it into one of these standard text areas. And then next of all, what we're going to do is go to View, Enable Editing, and I'm just going to enter the password. Hopefully first time. Wonderful. So it's just going to change our view into the Enable Editing view. So it's still selected our input area, the green text area. Is just now white because we've changed our view. You'll notice now that the Insert tab has appeared at the top. If I select that, then I can see that there's an Insert Cell area. Selecting that will open up this pop-up. Now, in regards to the name reference, what we like to suggest is using USX and then some form of a number. I'm just going to use 101 for today. And you'll notice that if it's already in use, it appears as red, just to pre-warn you. So select OK on there. I'm then just going to change my cell type to alphanumeric. That allows me to use both characters and numerical values within the same cell. And then finally, just going to drop down to this triple dot area for the actual calculation itself. Selecting that will pop up this menu. You then want to click Linkage and then find the CVXL formula. You'll notice on the right here, there are some good examples of the different formulas you can use. So in your own time, just take a look at those and see what you can make with it. But for today, we're going to be using example 4 here. So what I'm going to do is just copy that, save time, paste it in up here for the calculation. So what does this mean? We first will start off with the document ID itself. So within my working papers, my Excel document I'm going to be pulling from is Q2 for the fixed asset lead schedule. Perfect. So I'm just going to pop that reference here, Q2. Then for sheet itself, it's actually under sheet 1, which is the tab at the bottom of my Excel document you may have seen earlier. So just remove 2, remove the space, and make that 1. You'll now notice that result is populated as client. That's because A1 is the top left, and that actually says client there. So it's good to see that we're already pulling through some information. For today, I'm just going to open up the Excel document to show you the exact area that I want to pull through from. So this is to reference a single cell on Excel and put it through to a single cell within Caseware. We'll just wait for this to open up. Wonderful. So for today, let's take the least property amount for start of the year there. So C9 is what we're going to be referencing. Just close that down. Open up caseware. C and 9. You'll notice in the result it's automatically updated. So and then you leave the number at the end. That's just an additional operator. So then we click OK and OK again, and we should see that this cell populates now. Wonderful, with our figure. So there are possibilities to pull through from an Excel document to caseware. That covers connector as a whole. So we're just going to go ahead and close this. Oh, it's just taking a moment. There we go, and save that. So there are some good possibilities for connector and to use it both ways. So from working papers and to working papers to populate. So moving on, we're going on to Toolkit now. Wonderful. So we're going to be covering commentary notes, tick boxes, document references, hyperlinks, placeholders, and highlighting. So in a blue P to start, here's one I made earlier. We're going to start off with the trial balance lead schedule, just because it's a nice easy one. So as you can see here, I've got a couple of references on there already, but we're going to start as new for today. So by right clicking anywhere on any row within a lead schedule, you'll have access to all of the features, as I just said. They'll be within this right click menu. You'll notice that they also have their own shortcuts. So if you want to get a bit more custom with them, and you can remember those shortcuts, it makes it a bit quicker. So we're going to start off with new notes for today. Just simply clicking that allows us to add a reference to the note to the row of any work maybe that needs to be done by another colleague. Can you review this, say? And then clicking OK will then populate this numbered box here, and hovering over it will show me the comment as well as who created it and the date in which it was created. You can then double click to select it and edit that as well. That covers commentary notes. We'll then move on to tick marks. So on the next row down, we'll click new tick mark. And again, similarly to within the Excel document, we add tick marks. We can then add our own tick marks to the lead schedule. It's quite simple. So we can do calculated on this row and click OK. We've got a nice little C there, and hovering over it again shows us in more detail in regards to who made it and what exactly it is. So again, right clicking on this next one below document reference. This allows me to directly reference a document to the lead schedule. So it will automatically open up any relevant documents. So for today, we can use Q2, click OK, and we've got the reference there. I could then click that and it'll open up the document for me. I'm not going to do that today just because it'll take some time. But you can reference any document that's within your Excel, within your caseware file. Then we've got manual references, and more importantly, hyperlink references. So selecting hyperlink references, we can create a, actually we'll make something relevant. There we go, caseware UK. So we can give a label that will appear on the face, like this Google reference here. That's the label and how it will look. Then we can use this drop down if we want to change the kind of document we're referencing, the kind of link we're referencing, sorry. We can reference a document, or we can reference a direct hyperlink. So for today, we're just going to use caseware.co.uk. That's our main website. We can select to launch with an external browser. I would suggest using the internal one. It's a bit quicker. So select OK on there. And now we've got a link. So selecting that will populate a new tab and run it straight through caseware. So it's quite quick and easy to make a live link to a website if you need to reference some information, for example, some kind of new accounting standards. So that covers everything within the lead schedules there. What I'm going to do is now show you placeholders. So what you want to do is right click within a folder, select under new and placeholder. So the good thing about placeholders is it does what it says on the tin. If you're awaiting information, say a document or something like that, say another colleague's doing, but you don't want to forget where to put it, or you don't want to forget that you need to put it in, then you can create what we call a placeholder. So for today, yeah, I'll create draft 3 there, numbered with that reference, and PDF draft of accounts. You could put, say, needed, but the object of a placeholder is that you shouldn't have to write that down. It should be self-explanatory that it is a placeholder. And you'll notice that next to type, placeholder is selected. If I deselect that, the browsing path area will be updated, and you'll be able to then reference a document to that area. This is what you will do once you receive, say, that document from your colleague. You go back into properties, right click, go to properties under this placeholder, deselect placeholder, and add in your file. But for today, we'll leave that selected and click OK. So you'll notice that draft 3 there, PDF draft of accounts, is just a placeholder. If I double click that, it just literally tells me this isn't a document, it's just a placeholder for referencing documents. Perfect. So moving on. Let's move on to highlighting. So this is for use on, say, images of PDFs, or you can do it directly onto images as well. But the most common example is opening up, say, our draft of a PDF of previous accounts. So say if I'm a manager and I'm going through and reviewing this document, and I want to add some references on here just of things I'd like changed. Similarly to Adobe, we can right click, go down to highlight, and then by clicking and dragging, I can highlight this area. It will then pop up this box here to add a note. I could say, please change formatting. And then my colleague would know that that needs adjusting. You'll see down here in the bottom left, we can also change the color. So you can go crazy with colors and assign them to different people. So that's an example there. And click OK. If you don't want to add a comment, that's fine. You can just click OK and it will still highlight for you. And then selecting highlight again. You can then delete these highlights from here once they have been corrected. Similarly to the lead schedule, you can right click and go through and use all of the notation and reference features as well. So you can do that directly onto a PDF and save it that way. Wonderful. So that brings us to a close for this section of the webinar. What I'm just going to do is hand back to Yanni, and we'll go through any of the questions that Tom may have received during this webinar.
Excellent. Thanks, James. Very useful. Hope that sparked some interest with some of you guys. I did see the questions coming through. So if you are interested in linking to the cloud of SmartSync, that's another working papers version that you need to get. So just get in contact with your account manager. And yes, so connector is an add-on with working papers. It's not automatically included within your license. So yeah, again, just get in touch with your account manager. One question I do want to touch upon is a question from Mark. Will there be any other updates on versions number working papers 21.00152? And no, as far as I know, there won't be any more updates for working papers 21. So we're not going to experience something that we did with working papers 20, where they brought out a third version of it. But on good authority from CWI, I'm not aware of any newer versions of working papers 21 coming out. So this one should be good until we release working papers 22 later this year. Tom, were there any other questions that came in that wasn't answered?
I think you've actually just breezed through all of the questions that we but there was a question that came in via the chat from Tony, which was, I think it's something that we perhaps need to have a chat with him about after the broadcast. Will there be instructions to update our license app as we use that and Citrix?
Okay, I know there are instructions for Citrix users within our guidance, but if you're using a license app for it, I'm not sure whether that is, but we have a dedicated person in support that only deals with installations. So I will check in with him and then we will get back to you on that one.
Thanks, Yanni. That's everything. As far as questions go, if you have anything else, of course, you can continue to submit those and we'll get back to you as soon as we can.
Excellent. Thanks, Tom. All right, so again, another poll, please, guys. Okay, now would you be interested becoming a beta tester for Working Papers 2022? So what it is, CWI normally releases the first release in June, July to us, and that's the one that we test thoroughly, and then we wait for the second release, and that is the one we release to the UK public. We do have clients that always ask, can they be testers for it as well? So it's not an early release for the Working Papers. It is purely for you to test it in your own testing environment. So when you do roll out Working Papers, the new Working Papers at the end of the year, if we release, then testing for you guys will be easier. So for those that have answered yes, we will get in touch with you, but I will send out an email to the general public again closer to the time. But we do have some interest into it. Excellent. That's really good. All right, thanks for that, Tom. Okay, James.
Perfect, thank you. So yeah, just to round up the webinar here, we've got a list of some upcoming webinars. If you're interested in those, we have them up until, I believe, May at the moment. So jump onto our caseware.co.uk/events page to register. And a great promotion that we're actually running this month is a chance to win a 12-month subscription to Accounts Advanced Group Consolidation e-course. And you can actually be in with a chance of winning that by attending the upcoming group accounts webinar. For more information, you can find it on our LinkedIn page, as well as the Caseware events page as well. So yeah, just chatting about the LinkedIn page, you can follow it and follow us under the client services page, and jump onto our YouTube channel for more information and all of our quick vids and previous webinars, including this one, which will be uploaded shortly afterwards. Yeah, and don't forget that we also have our knowledge base. If you have any queries or any issues, you can use that, as well as the live chat function that's shown in the bottom right there. Perfect. So to finish up for today, thank you for joining us for this webinar, and we look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.